Hello and welcome to Talking Aussie Books, a weekly podcast bringing readers and writers of Australian fiction together. I'm Claudine Tonellis. As an avid reader and passionate advocate for Australian fiction, I have made it my mission to spotlight local talent. So if you're looking for your next read or simply want to learn more about the Australian literary scene, this podcast is for you. Grab yourself a cuppa, sit back and relax. Listeners, a few months ago now, I was thrilled to be in conversation with debut author Fiona McKenzie Kekic at Burklow Books in Balgala to celebrate the release of her wonderful feel-good novel, Reddy's Trip of a Lifetime, published by HQ Fiction. That evening, we enjoyed a fabulous night where Fiona regaled us with stories that led her to writing this book. Now, Reddy's Trip of a Lifetime is a tale about one middle-aged woman's quest to get back to the person she knew she could be, a literal and figurative journey that had me laughing out loud. Listeners, it's a terrific debut from a talented storyteller, and I'm delighted to have the chance to chat with Fiona again for the podcast. Welcome, Fiona.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity.
The last time we chatted, Fiona, your book had really only just been released and it was all fairly new. So I wondered if you could tell me more about what this time was like for you. How did you feel getting to see your book make its way out into the world?
It's real bucket list stuff for me. I've been working on the book for probably about 10, maybe even 15 years, just bits and pieces here and there. But I had a job, as we all do, and it gets pushed to the side and you pick it up again. And I worked in television and I found myself between contracts and I thought, okay, I need to do something. I don't want it to be going to the gym every day. So, yeah, I thought I am going to finish this book. And I did. It's a roller coaster. It's just the best fun. Every bit as good as I thought it might have been and hoped it would be.
Oh, that's so wonderful to hear. I love that. And so I guess you and I chatted about this before, but this isn't your first foray into the publishing world, but it was the first that you could actually put your name to. And we'll talk about the actual book a little bit later, but I wondered if you could tell us more about your journey to publication with this one. You mentioned it was like 10 to 15 years in the making, but when it was finished, like, was it fairly quick to get picked up, or was that a bit of a process as well?
No, I was actually being very lucky, and here's a big shout out to Romance Writers of Australia. If there's anyone who's listening who wants to write a book, the first thing I'd say to you is to join RWA. People think that maybe it's all Mills and Boon, like they're very light, lovey romance. It's not. It covers the entire gamut. Because if you think about it, just about every book has a romantic element to it. So if your book has a romantic element, maybe not Cyborgs on Mars, but if your book has a romantic element, join RWA. The first thing they have is contests. So parts of this book were put in contests, and I was getting feedback from judges and getting new ideas and constantly tweaking. Then I went to a conference. Now, at these conferences, you get to meet people who are from the industry. You meet publishers, you meet agents, you get to pitch your ideas. And I won an auction prize to submit my first 10,000 words of my manuscript or something along those lines to Rachel Donovan at HarperCollins Harlequin. I had this ready to go. And for reasons which I still don't understand to this day, I suddenly went, I am the new Jane Harper. I'm going to give her an Outback mystery. And Rachel was very kind. She read it and she's like, it just doesn't feel like it's your genre, Fiona. And so I ended up finishing this. And I remember she was very kind about the way I wrote. She liked my writing. So I sent her this. And within 1 month, I had a deal. And it was so lucky, but it's all RWA. And as I say, I wouldn't be published right now if it wasn't for that organisation. So thank you if anyone from RWA is listening.
I'm sure they are. And that is a truly wonderful story. And I couldn't agree with you more, because many listeners to this podcast will know that I too am a member of Romance Writers of Australia and have met some wonderful people through that organisation. And the fact that you and I are talking on this podcast today is a result of you successfully bidding on another auction item, which I donated last year.
Exactly. Proof of it. It just works. It really works.
Yeah, fantastic. And so if you don't mind me asking, how long between you being picked up by HQ Fiction were you actually published?
The day that I signed the contract was my husband's 60th birthday, and suddenly his 60th birthday was all about me. Poor bastard. That was August 2nd last year. And then I was published on July 31st.
That's so quick.
It felt like forever because my background is as a journalist, and I'm really, really good with deadlines. So I was getting these deadlines like 3 months. I'd have whatever they wanted done in like, here I am, 3 weeks, done. So yeah, it felt slow to me because I was galloping ahead. But I understand that in America, for example, it is very, very slow. It's years in the making.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, thank God we're not there.
I couldn't cope. I just couldn't.
So I want to chat about your bio for a moment. And you've talked about it a little already, but your bio describes you as a recovering television professional. And you have worked in news and current affairs, as well as reality TV programs that include MasterChef and Married at First Sight. And whilst the word recovering might be a clue as to why you've stepped away from this world, I wondered, Fiona, if you could give us a bit of context and how this led to you wanting to write novels.
Well, I wanted to write novels first. When I was 7, my dad said, "What do you want to do when you grow up, Fiona?" And he was hoping for something impressive. Like, he was an engineer, like a very, very clever man. He was hoping for doctor, lawyer, engineer, something like that. I'm going to be an author. And he like head in his hands. He said, "There's no money in it." He's absolutely right. And I said, "Well, in that case, I'm going to be a journalist." And I think he was hoping that I'd see better along the way, but I didn't. And I did become a journalist, working out in rural New South Wales, radio, television, made it to Sydney. Back then, I'm in the mid 80s, early 90s. It was a pretty tough road for women. You had to look a certain way, be a certain way, certainly submissive. You didn't get the big gigs. You tended to go to the Easter show and it was just fluff pieces. And also, a lot of the men were unbelievably misogynistic. I understand it hasn't improved that much, but I still wouldn't change a moment of it. I changed some of the people I worked with, maybe, but I really had a good time. It was great fun.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, I'm sure there are plenty of listeners who might be listening in thinking, I'd love to know more about what goes on behind the scenes of shows like Married at First Sight. And the testimonials and blurbs for this book read like a who's who of Australian TV personalities. People like Ray Martin, who actually launched your book, and Tracy Grimshaw, amongst others. So, Fiona, I guess I wanted to ask you, despite all the difficulties of working in TV and some of the things that you mentioned now, do you think it helped you become the writer you are today?
Yes, certainly. Yeah. And I should give a shout out to all those good friends and kind people who read my book and said nice things, because there are some unbelievably nice people in television. I was a long form journalist. So I was writing when I was reporting for a current affair, writing stories which went for 5 to 7 minutes. So you are writing a lot. I was the writer for 60 Minutes for a number of years. So again, writing, that's a mannered way of writing news. But then I got to MasterChef and Survivor and Married at First Sight. And that's when it's a lot looser, it's fun. And so, yes, I think it helps. You need to work on your craft, and any kind of writing is going to help. So writing as a job every day of my life, yeah, it certainly helps. What I consider myself reasonably good at is dialogue, and that would be part of having worked on reality television. You think in dialogue.
Let's talk about Ever Reddy. I wondered if you could tell us about that first spark of inspiration for Ever's story.
Well, it was actually the day before I turned 50, and I'm getting the wheels of my car pumped up and sorted to go out to the Blue Mountains for my big 50th birthday party, and my phone rings. It's my boss. I won't say who or where I was working at the time, but I'd been working in this particular company for, other than going overseas in childbirth, I had been there for something like 30 years. 30 years? 25 years, something like that. Anyway, he just rings and says, "Oh, your contract's not being renewed." So I suddenly didn't have a job. And it made me think, I'm turning 50. What would happen if absolutely everything went wrong in your life on that one day? How could you pick yourself up and go on and make things right again? So that was the genesis of the idea.
Tell us where she's at when we meet her.
When we meet Eva, she doesn't even realize it, I don't think, but she's given up on life. She's given up on all the dreams she had when she was young. She became a mother, she became a wife, and she put that and everyone else ahead of what she always wanted to be. She always wanted to be a journalist or a writer, or she just wanted a life which was big, and her life ended up being very, very small. But she's comfortable with that because she loved her husband. And then on this day of her 50th birthday, an anonymous message on Facebook tells her that her husband's having an affair. So you take away her job, you take away her husband, and suddenly she feels like she has nothing. And then it's time to rebuild. And she does.
As you say, we meet her on the morning of her 50th birthday and she gets this terrible message. Yeah, so the day quickly goes to hell in a handbasket and she loses her job too, doesn't she?
Yeah, she loses her job. She finds out her husband's having an affair. And the next day, I think it is, she gets a phone call from her parents' travel agent who says, your parents have gone missing in India. They were on a luxury tour. We decided that they had to go home, but instead of going home, they just go missing. Her mother's erratic. Her father is early stages of dementia. And so you can understand why they weren't allowed to continue the trip. But Eva's mother thinks that she knows better, and she decided that her and her husband are going to travel around India by themselves, independently.
Things, yeah, quickly go bad. But then she uncovers her old journal and a letter to herself, which she penned when she was only 13, which the instructions had only to be opened on her 50th birthday. And that letter is quite a revelation for Eva, isn't it?
Exactly. She's looking at something she wrote when she was 13, because it's drip by drip by drip that her life became something lesser. And she's reading what she thought she'd be, and she looks at what she is. And the gulf is enormous. At that moment, she can't see a way of bringing those two worlds together, but she will.
And I kind of got the sense, Fiona, that reading that letter to herself and the journal kind of makes Eva feel ashamed that she was so optimistic about her future and many of the things that she hoped for herself, which didn't eventually come to pass. And so, do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
I think it is particularly for women, it is very easy to lose yourself because you have a child and you put all your energy into that. You do become, well, I'm like, I've got a husband who has probably supported me more than I've supported him. He's an absolute wonder. But you can become the second person in a relationship. And as you go along, and I know so many people this has happened to, as you go along, what you want and what you need in your world, it just gets pushed to the side until you can't recognize yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with that Facebook message as well, Eva quickly comes to realize not only is she kind of second or last in the list of priorities, but her life has been in stasis for some time and everything has kind of revolved around her husband and his high flying career instead of the things that maybe she wanted.
That's exactly right. And I think she says somewhere that maybe this is the kick in the ass she needed. And it's true. She needed something to change her mindset and to change where she was physically as well.
Yeah. So Eva's marriage to Jonathan has been a bit of a bone of contention between Eva and her mother, Debbie. And I think if we asked Eva, she'd probably say that her relationship with her mother was a difficult one. And in fact, through flashbacks into Eva's life as a teenager and as a young adult, we kind of get glimpses into that relationship. And so I guess I wanted to ask you, was that mother-daughter relationship something that you consciously wanted to explore in this novel? And if so, why?
I'm writing another novel now, and I think my thing is to work through my mother issues. Yeah, very much. I wanted to think about the mother-daughter relationship, and I wanted to answer why a mother would be so critical. I wanted to understand why a mother would make a daughter's life so difficult and make her feel she's less than. But at the same time, as I was writing all of this, I started to get to like Debbie. So, as I said, working through my mother-daughter problems. And she became more and more like my grandmother on my dad's side, who was an absolute hoot. So, yes, she changed. I rehabilitated my mother on the page.
I think as a reader, we definitely come to understand Debbie's motivations and the reasons why she is the way she is and why she treats Eva the way that she does. I think it's definitely something that we come to understand, even though in the beginning it can seem quite an abrasive relationship.
Exactly. I came to love Debbie very much, but at the beginning, she is hypercritical about Eva's choices, and these are Eva's choices. She should be supportive. She certainly shouldn't be fat shaming her. As you go along, hopefully, Yeah, I understand where Debbie's coming from, and you get to appreciate the fact that she's just a life force.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned it a little bit earlier, but you spoke a bit about misogyny in the context of your working environment in the past. And that's something that Eva makes mention of in terms of her inability to achieve what she wanted to achieve professionally. And I think at one point she says, a woman's career has to be shoehorned into the narrow gap between home and family. And even when there is a little space, talent and brains are no match for the misogyny and Machiavellian maneuvering in the office. I think for Eva in particular, she sees that the minute she became engaged, her career in the newsroom died.
That is definitely the case. There was this idea when I was going through, and I don't think it's the same as it was, but someone getting married was the presumption was that they would leave their career and do the wife and mother thing. And back then, I think a lot of women did actually have to choose between a family and a career. And there are a lot of women who made that choice and are wildly successful. Oh, the other thing I would like to point out is that if the women who, particularly from my vintage, and I'd say even now, the women who make it to the top, damn, they deserve it. To beat out men, they have to be something really, really special. I think of like Melissa Doyle, Tracy Grimshaw, Ange Cox. Like these women are just powerhouses. But yes, it's just a lot harder to make it to the top as a woman in television. So you have to be pretty damn special.
I mentioned earlier your first foray into publication, which was your book, and it was called Boned. So I wondered if you could tell us a little bit about that book and how it came about.
It came about because me and a very good girlfriend of mine, she's passed now, sadly, she passed last year, but my book's actually dedicated to her. We were both reporters at a current affair and we had just had enough. There was just not even just in a current affair, but across the industry, the misogyny and the behavior was appalling. And we thought, let's write about it. Let's make it fictional. And of course, we also penned the book anonymously because we would never have worked another day in television if our names had been out there. All bets off now, obviously, but back then. But yeah, we just wanted to tell people what it was like. And it was around about the same time as you might remember Jess Rowe was under a lot of pressure on the Today Show. She was the host. And there was a quote from the head of Channel 9 at the time about getting rid of her and said something along the lines of, well, should we bone her? And it's such an ugly, ugly expression, but that's how the name of the book came about. And it was around about that time, Jane and I were just chatting in my lounge room, couple of wines going, enough. The people need to know. And so, yeah,
Mm.
we wrote a book, which I look back now and think, what on earth made me think that I could write a book? Because I'd never done anything like that before. And yep, we wrote a book.
It's so interesting to me because I was just re-watching an interview that was done on the ABC with somebody. I think her name was Mel Cooper. She was a senior sergeant in the New South Wales Police Force. And she had been talking about the toxic culture in the New South Wales Police Force for a really long time. And it kind of made me think about your book and the, exposing of the toxic culture that existed back then. And that interview with Mel was only about a year old, but she's kind of saying that that toxic culture has existed for a long time and still exists. So my question to you, Fiona, is do you think that anything has changed in the industry since the time that you wrote that book?
That's an interesting question. You might remember, I think about 18 months ago, there was some big scandal at Channel 9. I can't even remember what the scandal was that put everything into motion, but there was suddenly a big report came out on how workplace bullying and the way women were treated at Channel 9. And I got a copy of the report and I thought about ringing up and giving them my tuppence worth. But the thing is, it happened to me a long, long time ago. So I don't think I'm being particularly useful. I'd just be venting. And I read through it and I went, oh my God. The things women were saying right now were things which happened to me. So nothing had changed, just nothing had changed. Hopefully, the report made a difference and the industry is improving. But it just amazes me that in this day and age that it could still be happening.
Yes, agreed. So, getting back to Eva, Fiona, after the worst couple of days of her life, as you mentioned, she finds out her parents have been kicked off their tour in India. And I was so fascinated by this idea, but then found out from you that it actually has roots in reality, doesn't it?
Yeah, true. Yeah, truth is stranger than fiction, isn't it? Yes, it was. My mum and dad were on a luxury trip to Africa a few years later than they should have been going on trips to Africa. But I thought they'd be okay. Like they're it was 6 weeks, I think, and they're with a tour group. And yeah, Dad was in the early stages of dementia, but it looked fine. And then one day I get a phone call from their travel agent saying, look, your parents have been difficult and we've decided to leave them at Johannesburg. They're on the next flight back to Sydney. This was about halfway through. I was like, what on earth did they do wrong? Apparently, Dad had gone for a little wander at night in a game park and they'd forgotten their passport one time. They were going from one country to the next and the plane got delayed. And yeah, it was just mayhem. Yeah, they're not doing it deliberately, but they were just at that age where they were forgetting things and so forth. Anyway, so I ring Mum over in Johannesburg and say, okay, look, apparently you're on this flight back to Sydney. I'll be at the airport, pick you up. Where? Not coming home. I was going, you don't have a choice. You must come home. We're on a tour. No, you're not. They said you are not on a tour anymore. No, we want to see Victoria Falls. We want to do all the things on our itinerary. And so if they won't take us, we'll do it ourselves. I'm like, oh, golly gosh, oh no. So I start looking at flights on Expedia, thinking, I'll just go over, I'll take them where they want to go, and then bring them back safely. But no, my mother just switched off her phone. For 4 weeks, she had her phone switched off. She was radio silent. I was beside myself. Like, I didn't know that this Africa is a big continent and they're there somewhere unsupervised. But anyway, they got back in one piece, so maybe they know better than I do. But it was hell. At that stage, I'd never been to Africa, but I have travelled around India by myself. So I just moved the anecdote to India instead, somewhere I could go.
I love that. So yeah, you've used that experience and you've given it to Eva. And in this case, Eva becomes convinced that she actually needs to go to India and rescue her parents. So off she goes. But finding her parents in a city of more than 30 million people proves to be somewhat difficult, especially when Debbie decides to play a little game with her daughter involving TikTok of all things. So tell me a little bit about that. What was Debbie trying to do with these TikTok videos that she kept sending Eva?
I'm not sure what she was trying to do. I think she was just having a few drinks and enjoying herself. She wants Eva to live life to the fullest. So Debbie decides that she is going to give Eva the adventure that she needs. She knows that Eva's trying to find her, and she just leaves little breadcrumbs around India by way of TikTok videos. So you'll see a TikTok of Debbie at the Taj Mahal, and Eva will race over to the Taj Mahal. But of course, Debbie's already left. And then she leaves another TikTok video going, here I am. No, I'm here. Yes, I'm here. So yeah, that's what progresses Eva through India.
It's an absolute roller coaster ride for poor Eva. But I think Debbie's playful spirit really is about getting Eva to have experiences that she was kind of denied in her youth, wasn't it?
Exactly right. And she certainly has experiences, probably not quite as exciting as Debbie, who goes crowd surfing during a holy festival. But yeah, she experiences things she would never have done if it wasn't for her mother pushing her along.
Yeah, fantastic. So you mentioned it a little bit earlier that you had traveled to India. And I think one of the greatest strengths of this book, Fiona, is the setting. A little over half of it is set in India, where Eva is trying to track down her parents. As we've already mentioned, her mother is sending her on this wild goose chase. And it gives Eva the opportunity to visit some truly incredible locations, including the Taj Mahal, as you just mentioned. You've invoked it so beautifully, the reality and the mystique of India. We see it, we hear it, we smell it, warts and all. So I wondered if you sort of did any more research trips to flesh out the pages of this story, or was it all on memory?
I wish. I remember it so vividly. I was there by myself in my mid-30s, and it is every bit as frustrating and in your face, but I just loved it. The place is just so alive. I've been to all those places and just adored it. And huge news. I'm very, very excited about this, but I'm getting published in India.
That is so good.
1 billion people. Hopefully, some of them are like middle-aged rom-coms.
It's not just the romantic India. You really do give us a sense of what it is truly like to be wandering the streets of India as a tourist who genuinely doesn't understand how it works. And
How
so I
anything
think,
works.
yes, yes. And I think that is the joy of reading this, is that Eva finds herself in this society that she really knows nothing about, doesn't even know how to get to places. And things don't work the same way in India as they do in a Western society like ours. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, well, what I actually did was, where are we going? Almost 30 years ago, I was there, and it's very vivid. I remember it so well. But I would check on YouTube just that everything's the same. So, for example, I'm describing Satna. Surely it's not the same. I was like, do a YouTube going, no, absolutely the same. It's, yeah, I look. I know things will have changed, but everything I wrote about it, I did a quick check that it was still as I remember it. Here's a story. I was traveling from Bharatpur, which is Bharatpur, no, from Karajaho, where the erotic temples are, and going to the next location. I think might have been the bird sanctuary, something like that. Anyway, I catch a local bus, and at this stage, I've been on so much public transport, and being by yourself, you're hassled. That often men will sit beside you and sit too close, and like just touch a bit. And I had like I just wanted to sit on a bus for 8 hours and be left alone. So I bought a seat for my backpack. So I had the backpack next to the window, and I'm sitting at the aisle, and it's all very comfortable. And it actually ended up saving my life, I think, because the bus was in a serious accident and I ended up being in this little cocoon. The backpack held the two seats apart and I was able to climb out through the window. And yeah, so that's India. Anything can goddamn happen.
Oh my goodness.
You remember there's a scene where she's in a bus. I was describing the bus that I was in, and there was a chicken. Like the bus is hurtling along. I am terrified, and it's just me and the chicken looking at each other, going, "Oh my god!" But yeah, that's just India. Everything is chaotic, so chaotic.
Yeah. And so for Eva, I think she has somebody that kind of comes to her rescue in a way in India, because I don't think she would have survived India had it not been for Utkarsh. I think that's how you say
Utkarsh,
his name.
yes, that's how you say his name. My husband, it took him a while, but he finally did read the book. At the end of it, he goes, "Do middle-aged women really fantasize about exotic men?" I went, "No, of course they don't." But yes, Emma meets Utkarsh. No spoilers here, but she meets him early on. He's a cab driver, and eventually he helps her. He helps her get through India and navigate around the chaos, but he also helps her appreciate the wonder of the place.
Indeed, he does. He's a lovely character. Now, Fiona, I wanted to talk about the structure of the book a little bit, because it reads a bit like different episodes of a TV show. And then other parts of the book reads like a script with all the sort of directions that you would normally see in an actual script. So we can definitely see the influence of your TV writing here. But I'm interested to know if this was the way that you saw yourself writing the book, or it just wasn't a conscious decision and it came out that way.
No, it wasn't a conscious decision. I do like getting a chance to breathe between chapters, like emails, phone calls, that sort of thing. Little stepping stones to get you along the way. But yes, no, that's just how I write, because I think like a reality television show. Now, I think that's why I write in the same way. And
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. I hadn't thought about it, but it's very episodic. It could be a 13-part miniseries, couldn't it? Or in your dreams.
But I loved the way the final chapter was called season finale, which kind of made me think, yeah, there you go.
I actually worked on The Bachelor a few times, and yeah, very much the same. Very much the same.
Yeah, love it, love it. Fiona, you might know that there are a lot of aspiring writers who listen to this podcast. And so I wondered if you had any advice or tips that you could offer people who might be in the situation that you were just before you got picked up.
Once again, join an organisation. Maybe Romance Writers of Australia isn't for everyone, but it should be. But yeah, I think being able to talk to like-minded people and have some contact with professionals is huge. You've got to keep writing as well. You do get better and better and better. So just keep practicing your craft and read. I think the more widely you read, like don't just get caught in your own genre. Read, 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 and read, and just be determined. If you're determined, you'll get there. You will. You will.
Fantastic. I love it. And so, Fiona, what's next for you? I seem to remember you saying something about working on another novel right now.
I'm working on it. And as anyone else who is an aspiring writer will know, it is so hard to write when you don't know if your book has a market at the end of it. But hopefully I've got better contacts now and all of that sort of thing. Yes, it is very, very hard. It's going to be the same kind of thing in that it's middle-aged woman finding herself. That is my genre, but I'm throwing in a rescue dog this time because dogs are the best.
If there was one thing that you would like readers to take away from this book, Fiona, what would that be?
I want people to realize that, particularly people with middle-aged women, it's not over. Like, you can just start again, you can pick up. And you're so much more than I think society believes you can be. Like, society is very ageist. They're wrong. They are just wrong. Social media, it's wrong. I think we're much more interesting. We have so much more potential as we get older. And I just want people to believe in themselves. If you want something, make it happen, because that's what I've done. My first book with my name on it, and I'm over 60. And for anyone who is thinking about reading the book, it's a bit cheaper on ebook from 18th of November to December 1st, only $5.99. So hopefully you might be able to pick it up.
And on that note, I want to say congratulations once again, Fiona. Thank you so very much for joining me on Talking Aussie Books today.
Oh, thank you so much, Claudine. It's been so much fun.
That's it for this episode, folks. Hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. If so, I'd love it if you'd leave a review on your preferred listening platform, which may include Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Amazon Music. Until next time, friends, happy reading.